I've always been able to understand cats. Not in the metaphorical, I just get them kind of way. No, I mean actually understand them. Words, sentences, opinions, most of which are either food-related or full of judgment. I don't know why I have this ability, and frankly, I try not to think too hard about it. It's not exactly the kind of thing you bring up in casual conversation. Most days it's helpful. Like when Mrs. Thompson's orange tabby told me the mystery illness he was dramatically dying from was actually just a case of refusing to eat the new diet food. Other times it's a headache. Like when a certain tortoiseshell cat strolled into my clinic, tangled in the sleeve of a furious-looking man who screamed money from head to toe. "This is not my cat," the man said through gritted teeth. His navy suit probably cost more than my rent, but right now it was being destroyed by tiny, determined claws. She followed me. "Do something." The cat in question, a small, scrappy tortoise, lifted her head and blinked at me. Then, in a voice full of smug amusement, she said, "This idiot needs supervision. Fix him." I stared, not at the cat, at the man, because the cat I understood. The man, however, was a different story. He looked like the type who didn't even like animals, let alone got adopted by one. Sharp, cold, clearly pissed off at his current situation. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his watch probably cost more than my yearly salary, and yet there he was, standing in my tiny clinic, holding a cat like she was an explosive device. "I'm a vet," I said slowly. "Not animal control. I don't care what you are. Take her." "I like the look of you," the cat mused, still comfortably tangled in his sleeve. "You'll do." I sighed and stepped closer, carefully lifting the cat off his arm before she shredded the fabric completely. She was light, all wiry muscle and mischief, and she purred the moment I held her. "You just picked her up off the street?" I asked. "She was loitering outside my building. Tried to get inside. I nearly stepped on her." His scowl deepened like the memory personally offended him. "I figured bringing her here was better than letting her get run over." I blinked. That wasn't what I expected. The guy looked like he was seconds away from slamming a "No Pets Allowed" sign on his own soul. But here he was, bringing in a stray because he didn't want it getting hurt. "What's your name?" I asked, setting the cat on the exam table. "Vincent." "Vincent?" I repeated, turning my attention to the tortoise, who was now aggressively head-butting my hand. "And what about you?" "He calls me get off and stop that," she said cheerfully. "But I like Buddy." I bit back a laugh. "All right, Buddy. Let's see how you're doing." Vincent crossed his arms, watching as I examined her. She was a little underweight but otherwise healthy. No microchip, no collar. Just a stray who'd chosen a ridiculously unwilling human. "She's fine," I said, rubbing behind her ears. "Looks like she's been on her own for a while. Are you planning on keeping her?" Vincent recoiled like I'd suggested something truly offensive. "Absolutely not." Buddy let out a loud, exaggerated sigh. "He's in denial." "Don't worry. I'll fix him." I shook my head. "Well, if you're not keeping her, you have two options. I can call a shelter, or you can foster her until we find her a home." Vincent hesitated, just for a second. Then his expression shut down. "I'll pay whatever it takes. Just get her somewhere else." "Liar," Buddy purred, rubbing against his arm. I watched Vincent's jaw tighten. A part of me wanted to push, see how much of his cold exterior was real. Instead, I just nodded. "I'll make some calls." Buddy flicked her tail and gave me a pointed look. "He's already mine. Just wait." I had a feeling she was right. It took exactly 3 days for Vincent to come back. 3 days of silence, in which I almost convinced myself that he'd actually dumped Buddy at some luxury pet hotel and washed his hands of her. Almost, because when my clinic door slammed open at 8 a.m., and a very sleep-deprived CEO stalked inside carrying one squirming tortoiseshell menace, I wasn't even remotely surprised. 3 days ago, after an awkward pause, Vincent had exhaled sharply and muttered, "Fine," temporarily, before stalking out with Buddy still smugly perched on his arm. I had a feeling it wouldn't be that simple. "She's ruining my life," Vincent announced. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in, 3 days. His usually perfect hair was a mess, his sharp suit jacket was missing, and there was a noticeable scratch on his jaw. Buddy, meanwhile, was completely unbothered. "Tell him he snores," she said, flicking her tail. "Also, he's a blanket hog." I fought a grin. "Good morning to you too, Vincent." Vincent scowled. "This is not funny. Depends on who you ask." I leaned against the counter and nodded toward Buddy. "What exactly did she do?" Vincent dropped into the nearest chair, shoving a hand through his already ruined hair. "She's insufferable." Buddy hopped onto my desk. "I was being helpful." I arched a brow. "Examples?" "She won't let me sleep," Vincent gritted out. "Every time I close my eyes, she's either jumping on me, biting me, or knocking things over just to watch them fall." I hummed. "Sounds like she likes you." "That's not liking. That's psychological warfare." Buddy yawned. "He's so dramatic." I glanced between the two of them, barely holding in my amusement. "So let me get this straight. You, who claimed you weren't keeping her, have, in fact, kept her, let her sleep in your bed, and are now here at dawn because she's causing problems." Vincent's eye twitched. "This is temporary." "Aha." He exhaled sharply, clearly reevaluating every life choice that had brought him here. "Tell me what to do. Fix this." I folded my arms. "There's nothing to fix. She's bonding with you. By attacking me in my sleep? She's a cat, Vincent. That's basically a love language." Vincent shot Buddy a glare. She flicked her tail at him. "You should be grateful. Most humans would kill to have me." I coughed to cover a laugh. "Look, she's adjusting to a new environment. She's testing boundaries. Give it a few more days and she'll calm down." Vincent looked unconvinced. "What if she doesn't? Then congratulations, you have a high-maintenance roommate." He groaned, rubbing his temple like this entire conversation was physically painful. "I run a multi-billion-dollar company. I do not have time for this." Buddy rolled onto her back, stretching luxuriously across my desk. "That's cute. He thinks he has a choice." I smirked. "You could always bring her back to the shelter." Vincent was silent. Not for long, but for just long enough. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my desk. "You haven't even tried to call one, have you?" His jaw tightened. He stood up abruptly, straightening his now wrinkled dress shirt. "I don't have time for this," he repeated. But this time, he sounded more like he was convincing himself. Buddy watched him gather himself with a knowing glint in her yellow eyes. "See you soon," she purred. Vincent didn't respond. But when he stormed out of my clinic, taking Buddy with him, I just shook my head, because he was definitely coming back. I knew Vincent would be back. I just didn't expect it to be this soon. 2 nights after his last dramatic exit, I was just about to close up when my clinic door opened with sharp precision, and in strode Vincent, immaculate suit, unreadable expression, and Buddy draped over his shoulder like the world's most spoiled scarf. "We need to talk," he said, ignoring the very obvious closed sign on the door. I glanced at Buddy, who lifted her head and chirped. "I require snacks." "Sure," I said, shaking my head. "Come on in. It's not like I have a home to go to or anything." Vincent, predictably, ignored my sarcasm and took a seat. Buddy leapt onto my counter and began making herself comfortable. I pulled out a small container of treats and slid it toward her. She immediately pounced on it, purring triumphantly. Vincent leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "I've decided on a deal." I arched a brow. "A deal?" He nodded. "I will keep Buddy temporarily, but under specific conditions." I glanced at the cat, who was now rolling onto her back, batting lazily at the air. "Aha! And what conditions would those be?" "1." He lifted a finger. "She needs discipline. None of this cats do whatever they want nonsense. I run a business, not a circus." I snorted. "Good luck with that." 2. Another finger. "She needs proper health care, which means I expect you to handle everything." I folded my arms. "So, Free vet services? Got it. Vincent shot me a look but continued. 3. If this arrangement doesn't work, you find her a new home. Buddy flicked her tail. Like hell he will. I hid a smirk. And what do I get out of this? Vincent frowned slightly, like the thought hadn't occurred to him. What do you want? I pretended to think. Unlimited access to your fancy espresso machine? Fine. Oh, you agreed to that way too fast. What's the catch? Vincent leaned back, crossing his arms. That's it. The terms are set. Do we have a deal? I glanced at Buddy. She yawned, then stretched out, looking completely at ease. We already won. I sighed. Sure. Why not? Vincent extended a hand. I shook it, trying not to laugh at how serious he looked. Congratulations, I said. You're officially a cat dad. His eye twitched. Temporarily. Buddy purred louder. Yeah, sure. Temporarily. Between Vincent's complete lack of experience and Buddy's dramatic antics, I see them way more than expected. Not that I'm keeping track or anything. It starts with a late-night call. This is unsustainable. Vincent announces the moment I answer, skipping any form of greeting. Fix it. I rub my eyes. Fix what, exactly? My life. I blink. That's a pretty tall order for 2 a.m. Buddy is sabotaging me. I yawn. Let me guess. She's taken over your desk. No, he says, exasperated. She's taken over my bed. I stifle a laugh. Vincent, she's a cat. She's a tyrant. Buddy chirps in the background. He is very dramatic. I sigh. All right. I'll come over in the morning. By the time I get to Vincent's penthouse, I half expect to find him clinging to the edge of his bed while Buddy reigns supreme in the center. Instead, I walk in to see Vincent standing completely still in his bedroom doorway, staring at his own bed like it contains a landmine. Buddy is sprawled across his pillows, looking very pleased with herself. She's taken my spot, Vincent says monotone. She growled at me when I tried to move her. Buddy blinks at me, utterly unbothered. He is warm. I require warmth. It is simple. I cross my arms. Vincent, do you really need me here for this? Yes. I sigh and step closer to the bed. All right, Buddy. Time to move. She lets out a scandalized meow. How dare you? But she hops down and struts over to rub against my leg, dramatically betrayed. Vincent exhales like I've just performed an exorcism. Finally. But Buddy isn't done. She looks up at me, tail flicking. He needs a mate. I choke on air. What? Vincent frowns. What? Buddy tilts her head, completely innocent. He's single. You're single. Problem solved. I glare at her. Not how that works, Buddy. Vincent narrows his eyes. What exactly did she say? Nothing, I say quickly. Absolutely nothing. Buddy purrs, brushing against Vincent's leg before hopping back onto the bed. She likes you, I say, smirking. That's rare for a cat. Vincent looks at Buddy, then back at me, expression unreadable. That makes 2 of you. I freeze. Did he just get out? Vincent says, turning away, but I catch the faintest hint of pink on his ears. Buddy flicks her tail smugly. You're welcome. It starts with a text from Vincent, short, clipped, and characteristically to the point. Vincent, you owe me. I frown at my phone. Me? Me? For what? Pretty sure I've saved your life at least twice already. Vincent, my company is hosting an event. Be my +1. I blink. That's not what I expected. Me, you have actual business partners for that. Why me? A full 2 minutes pass before his next reply. Vincent, Buddy likes you. I snort. Me. So, your cat is the one who wants me there? Another pause. Then, Vincent, are you coming or not? And that's how I end up standing in front of an upscale ballroom, straightening my tie, wondering why I agreed to this. The event is as extravagant as I expected. Crystal chandeliers, a sea of black tie guests, waiters floating around with champagne. I should feel out of place, but I don't. Probably because Vincent is next to me, radiating his usual brand of effortless authority. He looks sharp in his tailored suit, not a hair out of place. Perfect picture of control. But I know better, because every time he thinks I'm not looking, his gaze lingers on me just a second too long, and I pretend not to notice. Julian. His voice is smooth, even. Try not to embarrass me. I smirk. I make no promises. He exhales sharply, but he doesn't move away. If anything, he stands closer. The night moves in a blur of handshakes and polite conversations, but I feel it. The way his arm brushes mine. The way he leans in when someone else approaches, as if subtly staking a claim. The way his eyes flick to me, quick and fleeting, like I might disappear if he looks away too long. Then it happens. A man, one of Vincent's business acquaintances, from what I can tell, approaches with an easy smile and a little too much interest in me. "And who's this?" he asks, eyes scanning me in a way that makes my skin crawl. Vincent stiffens beside me. "Julian," I answer, reaching for a handshake, but the guy's more interested in a lingering touch on my wrist. Vincent's hand closes around my elbow, not forceful but firm. "He's with me," he says, voice deceptively mild. The guy blinks, laughs. "Relax, just making conversation." Vincent doesn't let go. "Then find someone else to talk to." The air between them crackles, the weight of Vincent's presence pressing down like a storm cloud. The guy clears his throat, mutters something about needing a drink, and disappears into the crowd. I arch a brow at Vincent. Possessive much? He lets go immediately, looking away. He was being inappropriate, right? Across my arms. "And that's the only reason you reacted?" He doesn't answer, just downs the rest of his champagne and mutters, "I need another drink." Buddy's voice echoes in my head. He needs a mate. I push the thought aside. I don't do complications. And Vincent, he is one. But when I glance at him again, his jaw still tight, his grip on his glass a little too firm, I wonder just how much pretending I can keep up. I tell myself the event was nothing, just a favor, just Vincent being Vincent, gruff, controlling, a little too intense for his own good. Then he starts texting me. First, it's about Buddy. "Vincent, she won't eat the new food. Fix it." Me, I'm a vet, not a cat psychic. Figure it out. "Vincent, don't you claim to understand cats?" Me, that's different. Try mixing in her old food. Then somehow the texts shift. "Vincent, hypothetically, if a cat sleeps on someone's bed every night, does that mean anything?" Me, are we still talking about Buddy? Vincent, never mind. The first time he calls, it's late, past midnight. I stare at his name flashing on my screen, debating whether to answer. I do. "You're awake," he says, like that wasn't obvious. I rub my face. "So are you." There's a pause. Then, "Buddy won't sleep." I sit up. "Is she sick?" "No. She just keeps..." A sigh. "She keeps staring at me, like she's judging me." I bite back a laugh. "Maybe she is." Another pause. Then, quieter. "She keeps trying to push me off the bed." I snort. "That's what you get for naming her Buddy." He makes a frustrated noise. "This isn't funny." "It's a little funny." Silence. Not the uncomfortable kind. The kind that stretches like neither of us wants to be the first to hang up. "Julian," he says eventually, voice lower now. "Do you ever think..." A loud thump cuts him off. A grumbled curse. A muffled meow. I grin. "Did you just get kicked out of your own bed?" I'm hanging up now. The call disconnects, but my smile lingers. I should go to sleep. Instead, I stare at my phone, half waiting for another text. And I wonder what exactly Vincent was about to say. It's raining when Vincent shows up at my clinic unannounced. Not that he ever really announces himself, but still. He stands just inside the entrance, soaked from the short walk from his car. His suit jacket is missing. His shirt clings to him in a way that shouldn't be distracting. And Buddy is perched on his shoulder, looking completely unbothered by the weather. "You're wet," I say stupidly. He gives me a flat look. Brilliant observation. She refused to get in the carrier. Buddy purrs, flicking her tail against his cheek like she owns him. She probably does. I take her, checking her over. Nothing's wrong with her, I say after a minute. So what's the emergency? Vincent shifts, not quite meeting my eyes. I was in the area. A lie. His company is nowhere near here. I decide not to call him on it. Instead, I smirk. You missed me. His jaw tightens. Don't start. Didn't deny it. He exhales sharply, running a hand through his rain-damp hair. He looks tired, frustrated, like he's fighting something he doesn't want to name. Buddy headbutts my chest and then stretches a paw toward Vincent. Fix him. I raise a brow at her. Fix him how? Vincent frowns. What? Nothing. I set Buddy down, but before I can step back, Vincent grabs my wrist. Not hard, just enough to make me stop. My pulse jumps. For a second, neither of us moves. The rain patters softly against the window, the hum of the clinic filling the silence between us. Then Vincent mutters something that sounds suspiciously like a curse, and the next thing I know, his lips are on mine. It's not soft, not hesitant. It's a clash of frustration and something deeper, something dangerous. His hand tightens on my wrist before sliding to my jaw, pulling me in like he's the one losing control. It's over almost as soon as it begins. 1 second, we're inches apart. The next, we're breaking a rule neither of us ever acknowledged. The kiss is brief, heated, and entirely too real. Vincent steps back first. His expression is unreadable, but his fingers twitch like he wants to reach for me again. Then, without a word, he turns and walks away like it never happened. Buddy, however, is thrilled. Progress. Vincent is avoiding me. He's not exactly subtle about it either. Calls go unanswered. Messages are read but not replied to. Even the usual unannounced clinic drop-ins have mysteriously ceased. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he was out of the country. But he isn't, because Buddy still shows up, perfectly groomed, well-fed, and overly smug whenever I see her. You're being ridiculous, I tell her one afternoon when she's lounging on my desk, flicking her tail. He's the one avoiding me. I didn't do anything. Buddy yawns. Exactly. I narrow my eyes. What's that supposed to mean? You didn't do anything. She stretches luxuriously. And now he's sulking. I scoff. Vincent doesn't sulk. Buddy just gives me a look, like I'm the dumbest human she's ever had to deal with. Then what do you call this? Annoying. That's what I call it. And fine, maybe I could be the bigger person and reach out first. But why should I? He's the one who kissed me and then walked away like it was nothing. If he wants to pretend it never happened, that's his problem. At least, that's what I tell myself until Buddy decides to take matters into her own paws. The next day, she's missing from my clinic. I don't think much of it until my phone pings with a message. Vincent, did you lose something? Attached is a picture of Buddy sprawled across his desk, belly up, completely unbothered. Me, she's your cat. Vincent. She broke into my office. I don't know how. I stare at my screen, biting back a smirk. Me, maybe she missed you. Unlike some people, she doesn't do avoidance. A long pause. Then, Vincent, do you want her back or not? Me, you mean do I want to rescue you? I'll think about it. Buddy shows up at my clinic later that night, looking very pleased with herself. She jumps onto my desk, flicks her tail, and announces, he's hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. I snort. Tell me about it. She levels me with a flat stare. You're not much better. You humans are exhausting. It's late when the knocking starts. At first, I think I imagined it. But then it comes again, firm, insistent. I glance at the clock. Almost midnight. I should ignore it. Normal people don't show up unannounced at this hour. But something in my gut tells me who it is before I even reach the door. I swing it open, and there he is. Vincent stands in the dim light of my doorstep, his usual sharp exterior looking slightly frayed. His tie is loosened, the first few buttons of his dress shirt undone. There's tension in his jaw, a shadow in his eyes, like he's been fighting himself just to be here. Buddy's sick, he says without preamble. That gets my attention. What happened? She threw up. Twice. I blink. That's it. His frown deepens. She never throws up. I sigh, running a hand through my hair. Cats vomit sometimes. It doesn't always mean something's wrong. His shoulders tighten. And if it does? I exhale. He's not gonna leave until I check. Come in. Vincent hovers as I examine Buddy, who, unsurprisingly, looks perfectly fine. She's curled up in her carrier, blinking at me like she's just as confused as I am about the late-night drama. She's not dehydrated, her vitals are fine, and she doesn't seem to be in pain. I say, closing the carrier. She might have eaten too fast or had a mild stomach upset, but I don't see anything alarming. Vincent's arms stay crossed, his expression unreadable. You're sure? Yes, I'm sure. I study him. Vincent, did you really drive across the city at midnight because Buddy vomited? Or is there another reason you're here? His eyes flicker. That's ridiculous. Is it? I challenge. Because if I didn't know better, I'd say you were looking for an excuse. A muscle in his jaw ticks. Don't. Don't what? Point out the obvious. He exhales sharply, raking a hand through his hair. I don't have time for this. And yet, here you are. Silence stretches between us, thick with unspoken things. He looks at me, and for the first time I see it real, unguarded hesitation. Like he wants to say something but doesn't know how. Buddy watches us both, then sighs dramatically. Oh, for the love of fish, just kiss already. I snort, shaking my head. Not helping, Buddy. Vincent glances between me and the cat, frowning. What? Nothing. I wave it off. Your cat's just being pushy. Vincent exhales, pinching the bridge of his nose. She's not the only one. Something shifts in the air. It's reckless, the way I close the distance between us. Reckless, the way he doesn't move away. I should say something, anything, to break the moment. But then his hand brushes mine, and suddenly, words don't matter. I don't know who moves first. Maybe it's both of us. But before I can think, his mouth is on mine. It's not careful, not hesitant. It's months of tension snapping all at once. A clash of want and frustration. Neither of us willing to pull away. The taste of him is sharp, intoxicating, and nothing like I expected. He pushes me back, his grip firm, demanding. I let him. Let the control he so desperately clings to slip through his fingers as I kiss him harder, deeper. His breath stutters, and I don't miss the way his hands tremble when they press against my skin. Julian, he murmurs against my lips, half a plea, half a warning. I answer by tugging him closer, fingers threading through his hair, swallowing whatever excuse he was about to make. Whatever restraint he had left shatters between us. Clothes hit the floor in a blur of heat and urgency, and the next thing I know, we're tangled in my sheets, lost in each other. I barely hear Buddy huff from the corner of the room. I mean, sure, it's great eye candy and all, but I'll be taking my leave now. I wake up to the weight of something warm and fuzzy sprawled across my chest. For one drowsy second, I think it's Vincent, but the annoyed flick of a tail against my chin tells me otherwise. Buddy? I groan, prying one eye open. Personal space. She ignores me, stretching luxuriously before settling back down with a satisfied sigh. You're warm. I claim you. From beside me, Vincent makes a disgruntled noise. She was my cat first. I glance over to find him watching us, his hair a mess, his voice still rough with sleep. The sight of him in my bed, looking far too comfortable, does something to me. Something dangerous. I smirk. Jealous. He scoffs, rolling onto his back. Of a cat? Please. Buddy lifts her head, ears twitching. Oh, he absolutely is. I chuckle, scratching behind her ears. I'd say she knows you pretty well. Vincent glares at Buddy like she personally betrayed him. Traitor. She flicks her tail smugly. You're welcome, by the way. This took effort. Vincent doesn't understand her, but if he could, I'm pretty sure he'd be reconsidering his entire stance on feline companionship. Instead, he sighs and shifts closer, his arm brushing mine. You're really keeping her, then? I raise a brow. Are you asking if I'm keeping Buddy? Or if I'm keeping you? His fingers twitch against the sheets. Both. I don't hesitate. Yes. Vincent exhales like he's been holding that breath for a while. He looks at me, eyes dark and unreadable, before muttering, "Good." I grin, leaning in to steal a kiss, but Buddy chooses that exact moment to wedge herself between us, forcing her way into the space like the world's smallest chaperone. I sigh. Seriously? Vincent smirks. Looks like you're not the favorite after all. Buddy purrs. Smug. Correction. I win. You two were impossible. I shake my head, burying my face against Vincent's shoulder. He's warm, steady, real. Something I never saw coming, but now can't imagine going without. The cat always wins. And for once, I don't mind losing.